Good morning. I would like to call the meeting to order for today. And if you would stand and join me in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And first thing on our agenda will be the consent agenda. Approved minutes of November 18th. Approve payroll, approve vouchers, approve and sign State Shooting Complex Joint Powers Board lease. Approve and sign letter of support for Cody Music Club event to honor America's 250. Commissioners?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of, I would remove approve and sign State Shooting Complex Joint Powers Board lease for separate action later.
Second.
Okay, have a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing the State Shooting Complex Joint Powers Board lease at this time. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. So then I would bring up the State Shooting Complex Board lease. Commissioner Simone?
Madam Chair, I pulled this lease. I just think we need to have some discussion about the lease, specifically what we want to do going forward. My concerns with it were basically that there was, we needed to change the actual square footage from, it was initially in there as 429 and it's 286. And then the
Rental amount.
rental amount was $1 for the year, which I think we need to have discussion on.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want me to motion or we can just discuss.
It's up to you.
I'd prefer to just discuss if we can. I don't really have a motion prepared right now.
Madam Chair, where did the $1 come from?
It was just a discussion that we had to start things and whether we charged them or not. It's basically a temporary, although that temporary may be a year. They need a place for their executive director and administrative assistant to work with things. They picked a very small, well, Trevor calls it a closet. It's a little bigger than that, but place at the complex that has not been rented and never been rented as far as we know to keep track of their stuff until they get their building built out at the site. Then they will, of course, move everything to their office out there. But it was a starting point and see what we can get done.
Madam Chair, so my concern with it is consistency. For me, this was the same discussion we had with Northwest Healthcare lease being not the highest and best use of space and maybe not equal to what other renters pay. We asked Trevor from Buildings and Grounds what the average lease is now. It's $18 per square foot. At 286 square feet, that would be $429 a month, which is about 5,000 something a year with my math. Hopefully that's right. I'm just not really, I think we have to, in my opinion, apply the same standard to, I'm not comfortable saying that Northwest Healthcare isn't paying the same amount. And then now saying that we're going to be okay with giving someone else the opportunity to pay $1 for a year. So I think, in my opinion, it needs to be equal. Renters need to be treated the same. So that's where I am.
I understood our denial on Northwest Healthcare was not the rental amount. It was the use of the space, being a practitioner.
I think it was twofold. It was the rental amount and then also the statute for having a healthcare facility, but there was a lot of discussion about the rental amount as well.
Right, it was older.
Madam Chair,
Right.
I think if my mind serves me correctly, the reason we didn't renew it initially was because of the amount. I think is why we initially pulled that lease, is because of the amount and what they were paying, and they were requesting to go from 4 hours to 8 hours, and we were discussing amount. So I think it is pretty relevant to this too. And I agree with you that probably the main reason we did not renew it because of the use. But I just feel that there needs to be some consistency. Even though this is a space we may not rent, I just, I don't know, I think it sends a bad signal for what we discussed at the beginning of the year to be consistent.
Any other thoughts? Commissioner?
And Madam Chair, as much as I'd love everything to be equal and level, but the apples and oranges is what we're dealt. We have several other leases over there that are with nonprofit that are different rates than what our standard public, this being a state entity, if you will, more or less, with the Joint Powers Board and moving forward. And they've worked very hard with us to try to get this on the rolling with from the road to the site to applications and everything, and it helps them out. And it's in an area that we can't or never have rented before. Maybe we can approach the Joint Powers Board themselves and say, look, can you at least help us out on the utilities, a discount rate or something? Yeah, I'd love everything to be flat and equal, but they just never are. And we currently are not, between nonprofits and other state agencies or federal or government agencies renting spaces over there. So I think there's a compromise somewhere in the middle. $1 is pretty low. I mean, they give them a spot to start. Well, now they're starting to accumulate staff and stuff like that will cause a little more inconvenience and wear and tear, as well as electricity and stuff, utilities. So I think it's fair that we ask a little bit more than $1, but I don't know that the going rate would be comparable in this instance for that space. That's my thoughts.
Madam Chair, and when we first were discussing how we could help with the state shooting complex, most of it dealt with the road. And we didn't even really talk that much about maybe free or office space for $1. So I think the negotiation, there was never anything about that. We've never, asked for credit for giving them a deal, but I think a deal could be, as Mr. Teal had said, we'll pay for the utilities, pay for how much, so that we don't lose money on this whole project too, just with the office space. I know it's minimal amount, but I think it's something the state shooting complex could pay, maybe negotiating so that, to the public, we're showing that, we're not just giving them all this stuff all the time. So I think that if we delay this lease for maybe till the next meeting for the consent agenda, if we've had time, they're having a meeting on the 4th, to maybe they could bring that up to a standard that we could be acceptable with.
I can take it to them on Thursday at the meeting if that's what the board chooses.
Madam Chair, I think that'd be a good idea to kind of let them know where we're at.
Okay.
We've already dumped all this money on the road. I mean, I think what we do is take it to them and say, look, what can you come forward with? And I don't know how you'd ever figure out the utility issue. I mean, what would that be? But maybe they can come up with a number that they're willing to pay. And if it's a spot we're not going to rent, but I think, and I agree with Commissioner Teal, we're not consistent right now, but I think we've got different parameters. Plus we've got people that have been renting there forever that don't pay as much because they're still on that, but maybe take it to them.
Okay. Is that the consensus of the board at this point? That I will visit with them and we'll bring it back to the board on hopefully the 16th.
Madam Chair, I would just make sure that they understand what we would normally be charging.
Right.
And
I would
see,
take
that,
the
hey,
existing numbers
yeah,
for that kind of square footage and go from there.
And Madam Chair, I think the message needs to be, and I understand that they're just starting, but I think the appetite from the taxpayers is that this was going to be a self-sufficient operation and that this was not going to be a taxpayer funded entity. And in some sense, if we give them rent for a year for $1, we're kind of subsidizing and not kind of subsidizing, we are subsidizing. And I think they need to have some skin in the game. And so I think we need some clear parameters on what are we asking them. I think I agree with Commissioner Stewart. It's pretty hard to determine how are you going to have them pay for utilities? I think it needs to be more like, what can they pay for rent?
Okay.
right? Unless you have a different idea, but I don't know how you come up with the utility split for that space.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Smoke, no, what I meant was, whatever the revenue that we can generate should at least cover utility. Now, how do you quantify what that utility is or not? But we know that it's more than $1, probably is not 429 a month either. So somewhere in between would be, and I don't, you could take the full utilities divided by the square footage of the building and come up with that but
Average.
my point was, yes, we don't need to subsidize them, but we also, it's a little different kind of a animal than the other spaces that are rentable and usable by other entities.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Madam Chair, with that, then I would just make a motion to table the Wyoming State Shooting Complex Joint Powers Board lease until December 16th, right?
Yeah.
Is our next meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and second to table decision on the Wyoming State Shooting Complex lease until December 16th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then I will, I'll get some notes together and I will contact Lynn to get on their agenda for Thursday. Okay. Next thing on our agenda, development standards and regulations update. The DSR2 is moving forward. The technical advisory group met a couple weeks ago to go through the first round of uses being kind of agricultural and residential. Great discussions. They meet again this week. We're moving forward, finishing up with a little bit of the residential or multifamily things, and then moving into commercial and industrial as time allows. As the technical group finishes, then their thoughts are passed on to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they will be meeting also this month to work through, keep working through residential and move on into commercial and industrial as far as we can get. After that, then it will be put in a draft form for the commissioners to look at before it goes out to the public, or we schedule public meetings probably February, I would say at this point, February or March. Not positive yet on how soon we'll have that stuff available. Other than that, any other questions on DSR? Okay, the only other part of the update is we all know that the road and bridge standards are being taken out of those regulations and going to be written standalone, and our Public Works Department is working on updating those at this time. Should have a draft here in another month or so to look through that, so. Okay. With that, move on to public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. Anyone here from the public that would like to make any comments on anything on the agenda or any other? Any public comments? Okay. I guess we've got about 5 minutes before our next. Looking at my agenda correctly. 9:50. It is a public hearing, so we'll need to wait till 9:50. Okay, it is 9:50, so we will get started. We have a public hearing on the Good SUP 227 Third Amendment. So I would ask Erica Decker to go ahead and present that.
Thank
Kim
you, Madam
Gilliland.
Chair.
Sorry, Kim.
Chris and Mara Good submitted a special use permit application requesting approval of a third amendment to the Good SUP 227 to add 15 320 square foot storage.
Scoot it a little closer.
It's not loud enough for us.
Oh, I scooted in.
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's on.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Chris and Mara Good submitted a special use permit application requesting approval of a third amendment to Good SUP 227 to add 15 320 square foot storage containers. Currently, up to 40 storage containers are permitted to serve the existing fireworks storage and distribution operation that is classified as a major wholesale business under SUP 227. On March 15th of 2022, the original SUP was approved to allow operation of a fireworks storage and distribution business in an existing shop building and residence. In addition, up to 40 storage containers were included. Then in March of 2024, the SUP was amended to add a 4,800 square foot storage building for equipment in support of the existing fireworks storage and distribution operation. And then in June of 2025, the SUP was amended for a second time, adding another 1,200 square foot storage building for equipment in support of the existing fireworks storage and distribution operation. The applicable regulations are the 2025 Development Standards and Regulations. A special use permit may be amended upon approval of the board. The amendment does not require site plan review. This use is classified as a major wholesale business. Ownership has been affirmed. The property is located approximately 3 miles southeast of Garland on the north side of Highway 14A with an address of 127 US Highway 14A. The property is located within the General Rural Powell zoning district. Major wholesale business uses are not permitted in that district, but a variance was granted in August of 2021. Neighboring land uses are primarily a mixture of residential vacant land, and agricultural. The site plan map shows the area where the proposed 8-foot by 40-foot storage units, both north and south of the solid black line represented by X's, and the existing development on the parcel and in association with the use to include the residence, warehouse, 18 of the 40 permitted storage containers, and the 60 by 80 and a 30 by 40 storage buildings. Legal notice requirements were met. The application was forwarded to relevant agencies and responses were received as follows. Park County Treasurer stated that the parcel is paid current. Second half taxes will be due May 10th, 2026. The Department of Fire Prevention and Electrical Safety stated no action is needed. The Wyoming Department of Transportation stated the existing access is currently permitted as a commercial access. A new access application is not required for this proposal. Park County Fire District Number 1 can provide fire suppression and requests all access points that are constructed to accommodate fire equipment. Wyoming Game and Fish Department had no wildlife comments. Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality provided a general list of notifications, permits, and certificates required for various activities that may impact surface or groundwater. Park County Public Works has not provided a response. I'm going to change one of my findings. Park County Weed and Pests did respond after the staff report packet had gone out. They do not require a long-term noxious weed management plan and just recommend following best management practices. And also the next finding, we have received 2 comments yesterday. The neighboring landowner had some concerns about property values, their view, and fire suppression. And then that same neighbor sent an email later in the evening. They'd been contacted by the applicant and they've resolved their differences, that they said that water was going to be provided in the area. Although the planning director did reach out to the city of Byron and they do not have plans to extend water to that area. The board approved SUP 227, second amendment, with the following conditions, which will be carried forward. Park County noise, lighting, and other nuisance regulations shall apply. The applicant shall comply with the Wyoming Department of Transportation rules with regard to access and parking along Highway 14A, which may include applying for additional permits. The applicant shall comply with all applicable rules as amended of state, federal, or local agencies pertaining to the use, storage, transportation, and disposal of fireworks or other hazardous substances associated with this use, including but not limited to Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, Internal Fire Code, National Fire Protection Association, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Consumer Product Safety Commission as applicable. All structures used to store fireworks on the property, with the exception of the existing warehouse structure, shall be a minimum of 50 feet from the YDOT right-of-way and a minimum of 50 feet from a residential structure on or off the property. Prior to commencing construction of the 1,200 square foot storage building, the applicant shall obtain a building zoning permit from the Park County Planning and Zoning Department. The applicant shall obtain building and zoning permit for the 4,800 square foot storage shop used to store equipment on the property. The applicant shall not store, distribute, or launch/demonstrate display fireworks on the property for the general public. The launch demonstration of fireworks is prohibited within 150 feet of an occupied space or structure. The applicant shall not utilize the property for retail sales purposes or operate a storefront on the property at any time. The applicant shall comply with the recommendations of Park County Weed and Pest. Any change to the use to include but not limited to retail sales, manufacturing, expansion of storage or business facilities, etc., shall require an amended SUP or new SUP if permissible. The applicant shall otherwise comply with the standards in the Park County Development Standards and Regulations. There are no specific criteria for the proposed use, and the proposed use is not located in any overlay district. Should the board approve this third amendment to the good SUP 227, staff recommends adding the following condition to the existing conditions of the good SUP 227 second amendment. Just one condition: the applicant shall obtain an approved building zoning permit for each storage container used to store fireworks on the property prior to placement. We stand by for questions. Thank you.
Any questions for staff at this time?
Madam Chair, I do have one. I think on page 11, and it's like one of the bullets, where is it? The applicant shall not store, distribute, or launch/demonstrate display fireworks. I thought that was changed at the last.
That-
Or was it
Madam Chair,
commercial?
that was cleared up with condition 7 of the previous, which will carry, these conditions will carry forward on the amendment.
These conditions, all of the bullets are the conditions from the previous amendment that are just carried forward with this.
Not following.
Your concern is,
Because remember at the last amendment, there was a motion to allow the display or to launch display fireworks, I thought.
right, Madam Chair, Commissioner Simone, condition 7 of the current of this packet reads: the applicant shall not store, distribute, or launch, demonstrate, display fireworks on the property for the general public. If I remember right, the for the general public is what we added to clear up that issue.
Because it was
They-
allowed for private, not for the.
They could do it for,
Okay.
Our applicant is here too, so if he would like to speak to anything, this is a public hearing, but we'll have him start.
Sure.
That's fine.
If they work.
Yeah, if they were.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, Commissioners, Chairman Littlefield. Yes, we did change that this last time. I would like to change it, just eliminate it altogether is what I'd like to be able to do to allow us to do that, but we did change it the last time to allow, I can't sell them or anything like that or store for the general public, but for private use or those people that are specifically.
Distributors.
Yeah, exactly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was the
That
public.
was some, I think your dissension vote that wasn't part of
Yeah.
what it was before. Yes, correct.
Because I remember now because Madam Chair, because it was, you were wanting to do it for the public and we hadn't ran it past YDOT and the other agencies before.
Yeah, we agreed not to do it for the
Right.
public because we did it those 2 years and there was some traffic issues and some other
Sorry.
things out there too.
Thank you.
You bet.
With that, I would ask if there's any public comment regarding this request for this amendment. Any public comment on Amendment 3? Hearing none?
Madam Chair, I move to close public hearing. Second.
As the applicant, you can, but. Okay, have a motion and a second to close the public input. Any further discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it sounds like the applicant has one other comment to make.
Yeah, I would like to be able to see if we couldn't, I asked for 15. I initially, when our first part of our meeting that we had there, I would like to be able to add more containers as we expand without having to come to you guys each and every time. Is there a way we can eliminate the number of containers on there on the property? And also another question was, I'm negotiating with Mountain Construction, Michael and Stuart Frost, to purchase that property that's directly east from my property boundary over to there's a fence that runs north and south. We talked about that. And I found out from Michael Frost the other day that the fence was put there, something to do with their mining, I guess. And you might know that, Lloyd, had something to do with their permit. That's why the fence was there. There's kind of just delineating piece of something we could go against, I guess. That makes sense. Kind of a boundary, I guess, on that east side. So I'd like some clarification. Initially, when we talked, if you remember this, Mr. Dillon, that if I were to purchase that property, then Joy told me in the first part of that conversation, we could just glue it to our existing property, do a boundary line adjustment as long as is it anything under 35 acres, you don't have to subdivide, is that correct? And anything over that, as long as it's over 40, would be an exemption for subdivision exemption, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. Then about 10 minutes into that conversation, it changed a little bit. She said that I had to go through the entire amendment or new variance process. I just want to know, can I just buy that property and we can add it, my property with the boundary line adjustment and continue doing what we're doing? Is that possible?
I think in my understanding, because you are adding property to an approved SUP that included a legal description, we would have to amend the SUP in order to include.
So just
anything
another
that we
amendment
added.
would be in a.
If it's a boundary line adjustment, it might just be an amendment. Wouldn't have to be a full new SUP process. I don't know. The director just walked in, so we'll see what she says.
Yeah.
Come on up,
and-
Joy.
And Madam Chair, I would, the details, I would want to look in our 2025 regs to be certain.
Okay. The question, Joy, is, Mr. Good asked, well, two things. We'll deal with the second or the first one later, and that's the number of containers. But the other question was if he purchases the additional land adjacent through a boundary line adjustment onto his property, that is not automatically included in this SUP because it was not in the original SUP land-wise, correct?
Right. So let's talk about the couple options that we discussed with Mr. Good. So he talked about a possible boundary line adjustment,
Mhm.
which, as you know, that just shifts some of the land from the adjacent property into his land. It'd be combined, no matter how many acres that would be. If he wants to buy a separate piece and not go through the subdivision process, it would have to be 35 acres or larger. I think maybe you talked about 40 acres.
Yeah, and what I think is like 43 is what it ended up being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Given
So.
those.
But over 35 would be exempt. They would just have to do a survey and then it could remain its own piece of land. It wouldn't have to be joined with what he owns now. As far as the use though, expanding, you may recall, I think staff mentioned there was a variance approved. That variance applies to the current property.
Okay.
So if he wants to go off property, then he'd have to get another variance. And so that was the discussion. It wasn't a change in the discussion. It was now we're talking about expanding the use, the variance applied to what we have now.
Particular piece.
The SUP, as you know, when you expand a use and the expansion qualifies for site plan review, which is when you're over 5,000 square feet of floor area, or you're over an acre of impact, then you have to start over with a new application according to our rules. So what he's doing today does not exceed that site plan review requirement, which is why he's able to come to you and not go through a full new SUP. But if he were to come before you with something that requires site plan review, so a bigger expansion, then he would have to go back to the P and Z Commission and basically start that process over.
Okay, then let's go back to your first comment about wanting to do unlimited number of additional containers, not just the 15. He had asked if that was possible. But
Yeah,
what
and
you're
Madam
saying-
Chair, my only recommendation is to the board that you address what has been applied for. If that's changed, that's not what was in the application, which could then trigger a brand new SUP. And he knows because we discussed that. So he was given the option to do a brand new SUP and he didn't want to do that at this time, partly because he's still negotiating potentially on an
Plan.
expansion. So, and I want to make sure he's doing the quickest, you know, not having to go through this 3 times kind of thing. And so we discussed those options, which is why we stayed here. He wanted to do the 15 because it kept him under the 5,000 square feet.
Okay,
And Madam Chair, I would just ask for clarification on the bounds of the use because when you drive by the property, it's kind of spread out, you know, quite to the east. I think it would be nice on the record to make it clear if what's in the packet, you know, where the lines are drawn, if those are really the bounds of the use, or if he intends for the whole property to be fair game, just so it's clear in the use. If the neighbor had mentioned there was some concern about where these things were being placed, similar to other SUPs, we do basically draw the bounds of where the use should be contained. That might be helpful in this case, just to give the neighbor a little bit of understanding of where things are going to be. And I think the drawing that Mr. Good provided sort of showed the intent for where they're going to be placed.
Yeah, the Middletons didn't get that drawing, I guess, so she assumed that we were gonna put them right
Up
over there. in
north
front of
there?
her property.
Yeah.
That's why I visited with her
Yeah.
yesterday
So
afternoon.
what we will
Clarify.
do is we'll make sure that the use is sort of drawn around that area, just so it's clear. That way, if they expand outside of that, if there's a concern from a neighbor, we'll just be like, well, here's what the board approved. Here's where the use was approved. And we have that happen sometimes, you know, where people kind of go beyond where they said they were going to go and then it causes a problem. But we'll just go with what was provided in that drawing, if that's the board's.
on that,
Interest.
on that drawing, the neighbors are to the west, correct?
Correct.
And so, and you're proposing these are actually out to the east.
Yeah, from the, we want to
Okay.
try to keep everything from that, the new shop that we
Right.
put up there. You're
Right.
looking at the same picture.
Mhm.
The new shop there, the newest small one there, we'd like to keep everything to the east of
East of
that.
that, okay.
Yeah. And some of that is, it's just not build onable because it's too steep or it would be too prohibitive excavation wise to be able to get dirt pulled away from there.
So if I understand what we just heard from the director is that we can't really put an unlimited use on this. We can't change the number of containers that was applied for, being the 15. Because that may or may not put it into a different site plan and a different category that has to be reviewed. So we would stick with the application as it's proposed today.
When we initially talked, that's what I wanted to do is indefinitely, but
Okay,
we
understood.
went back to this because of the 4,500 or
5,000 square feet,
yes.
right?
Yeah,
understood.
and because he really wants to see where he's gonna go with the
With
expansion.
the other property.
And then that would
Yeah.
like leads to the variance and all the different things, which would be a different story, so.
So would I have to go through the entire variance process again by purchasing that property next door? Or is that possibly just done through an
Okay.
SUP? Amendment through an SUP?
The variance would have to be done because of the use, is my understanding.
That's my.
Even though the boundary line adjustment would be made and so it'd be fall underneath property that we already have?
Is it different if it's just a single parcel or if it's a boundary line adjustment?
I would need to look at the variance approval.
Okay.
But without knowing which direction, it's hard to say, but I can look at the variance and
Okay.
see.
I think, we know you've grown the business, which is great. Hopefully we can work with you, maybe this today, but knowing what the possibilities are and making a decision before you have to come back to us as to what's needed at that time, that we can move you through the least steps that we can
Okay,
hope to have, but we're still gonna have to follow the rules as they exist, so. Okay. Okay, so, is there any other comments? Or we, okay? Okay. Any other questions from the board? We are looking at the 15 additional containers as indicated to be placed east of the existing facility, correct?
correct.
Any other comments from the board?
Madam Chair, I would, moving forward, I want with, because we are in the DSR and stuff like that, I feel like the 5,000 square foot limit that is put on this was there for a reason sometime. Somebody came up with that for some reason.
Mhm.
And I just can't help but believe that that was originally set up for one structure. So, and if it wasn't, these storage containers weren't around probably when this regulation was put together. So maybe we can make some exception or something for storage containers, things like this, or small separations between the structures. I mean, I understand, I feel his pain every time he has to come back because of that we're accumulating all these square footages of totally separate things. So I guess your thoughts on, am I interpreting things wrong here? I'm trying to understand why we put that magical 5,000 square foot number in our regulations, and for, if we did, for what purpose, and does it really, was it meant for one structure or was it meant for accumulation?
Right now, it is written as total square footage, so it is a regulation, not that we didn't change anything in the DSR 1 to deal with this at the time, but it is certainly that we can look at in DSR 2 and figure out if there's a way to, if we choose, word it differently, or take a look at that when it can be broke up into different footages, as you're
Right.
saying, so instead of accumulative. But we can take a look at that and see what the P and Z Commission and our tag group thinks, if there's an effect there, and I don't know if 5,000 square foot's the right number, but that's where we're at right now, and that is our current regulation, so. Any other comments from the commissioners?
Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Good, there, in our packet, there was a comment from a neighbor, just addressing that, their concern about fire suppression. And then there was a follow-up comment that had been resolved, because you had spoken to the city of Byron, who was planning maybe to bring water out, but then there's conflicting information about that. So, and I'm just going to preface this with, I know the fire marshal was, I think it's in here. I don't know where it is exactly, but, Hart County Fire District 1 stated they can provide fire suppression to the property and requested that all access points be constructed. You know, so to me, that's kind of the overarching answer, but addressing your neighbor's concern, can you speak to that piece?
Yeah, so Byron formed a new water district down there, and they went to the east. They included all of the houses clear to, I think, almost the Oasis Junction down there. My nephew's on the city council there, and they have plans to come west. How far west? I'm not sure what that infrastructure would need or take. I have no idea, but I've been talking to them, and I've gotten Mountain involved as well, because they'd like to have water out there as well. And some of the other homes that are being built out there, whether it's by the Amish or whoever, they want to possibly be on that water as well. So the district could possibly extend it to our side. So that's the scope of my discussions with them about that. So I have pushed or try to get pushed, a water district pushed out to our direction. But yeah, to answer the question, the fire marshal doesn't have a problem with where it's at and what we're doing, and fire suppression possibility if need be.
Well, I think part of our discussion when I've looked at this piece before was that the containers are actually a little bit of a help when it comes to fire suppression rather than being a
Absolutely, yeah.
big single building.
That was his preference, was that right there, yes.
And Madam Chair, just to follow up, so the way that you're arranging the containers, there's space enough to pass,
Oh,
obviously,
yeah.
through,
Yeah,
you're
we
making.
follow all the regulations from any of the regulatory agencies that we have that that or oversight to us, we follow those
For
recommendations.
access, basically, for
Everything.
fire suppression.
Yes, yeah. There'll be I would like one road that goes to each one, obviously, so that we can use it to pull or whatever else we need to do, but also for that reason right there. And you have to have vegetation away from the sides. There's just a ton of regulations that we already follow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else? Okay. Pleasure of the board.
Madam Chair, move to approve the good SUP 227 Third Amendment with staff recommendations.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the good SUP 227 Third Amendment with staff recommendations. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
So to clarify, what's your recommendation to me for expanding then, I guess? What's the next thing I need to do other than try to acquire that boundary line adjustment, getting the property from Mountain?
I think we can't really tell you what to do with your property, but
Okay,
if you do it as a boundary line adjustment, it may be a little different than if you buy a whole separate parcel. I mean, those are the discussions you're gonna have with planning and zoning as to which process would follow that.
okay.
And
The simplest, most streamlined.
right,
Yeah.
as much as possible, we will certainly do that with following the existing regs.
Okay.
So,
And you
okay.
guys, there's something else in the new regulations that possibly could be changed or no?
Well, but those are gonna be another year,
Okay.
probably before we actually get to the approval. So I don't know if you want to wait that long. Depends on your schedule.
Right.
But
Okay.
right now, it could be that long.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So, Madam Chair, question, thinking forward, if he had to go back through the process, if he buys a new property, chooses to expand, and he has to totally redo a new SUP and a variance, could that variance include a limiting as long as these structures were not connected? I mean, that could be a variance, could it not?
I'm not sure how far our rules let us go on the variant stuff, but we could look at it. But Kim can check that and have that discussion if there's a way to look at
I
that.
guess, Madam Chair, to comment on that, I think that we've had this discussion before. We shouldn't be issuing a variance. We should be, if this is.
Fixing the problem, yeah, I
that's the
agree.
problem, right. We'll look at that too as we work through the regs. I think that Kim and Eric are well aware of where we're headed with these regulations, so they can take a look at how that affects things. And
Okay.
we never really know until something comes up,
Right,
as
right.
to what the best process is going to be.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that'll be resolution 2025-80.
Thank you. Okay, our next public hearing is at 10:35. So we have about a 15-minute break here.
I can't help but think that 5,000
the station.
Okay, we're
So shoot.
back on the agenda. Next thing on our agenda, Kim Delvin, Erica Decker, Park County Planning and Zoning, a public hearing on Starry Nights Mountain Estates minor subdivision number 94 sketch plan review.
All right.
For Delvin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what I would like to do is summarize some of our findings, but you will find all of our findings and all the details and all the specifics in the packet. So Ken Montgomery submitted a minor subdivision application. He's the applicant. He's also the property owner. We did receive a revised sketch plan on November 26th of this year. Along with that, we also received a water distribution plan. The applicant requests approval of this 3-lot subdivision. One lot will be 23.96 acres. One lot will be 21.82 acres, and one lot will be 20.02 acres, each for residential use and possibly ag use. The regulations that this is coming out of is our 2015 county regulations. This subdivision is classified as a minor. The property is in the GR20 zoning district. The lot sizes are consistent with that zoning district. The total property acres is 65.8 acres. Public notice requirements have been met. Relevant agencies were notified as required. Beartooth Electric stated they currently provide service to proposed lot 1. They said they can provide power to the additional 2 lots, provided an easement is created. We did receive a soil report from Powell Clarksville Conservation District. Almost 90% of the property is in one soil type. You saw what that soil type is. That particular soil type, according to their assessment, is very limited for septic drain fields. All those soil types are rated not limited, though, for dwellings without basements, dwellings with basements, and small commercial buildings. And the primary soil type, which is 90% of the property, is considered prime farmland if irrigated. Park County Public Works, they did share with us a comment. They said the proposed subdivision has legal access from County Road. Madam Chair, I apologize. In my number 20 finding, I wrote County Road 8V. That should be 8VC. But anyhow, Public Works said that the property does have legal access from that county road. And then Public Works stated they will provide a formal review later. As of today, we still haven't received that formal review. Park County Weed and Pest stated they found noxious weeds, so they will require a long-term noxious weed management plan. Park County Treasurer stated property taxes are paid. Game and Fish stated they have no terrestrial wildlife comments, although they did provide their standard subdivision language to help mitigate any potential wildlife issues. And Madam Chair, as you had a chance to see all these comments. The Wyoming State Engineer's Office, we received a comment from them. They suggested that water rights for each lot be shown on the sketch plan. Of course, you did see a water distribution plan, which does show the water rights on each proposed lot. The State Engineer's Office also stated that if flood irrigation is used, so if sprinkler is not used, they would like to see those wastewater ditches shown on the final plat, is what they would like. And again, I'm assuming if that's only with flood irrigation. Additionally, the engineer's office said they would like to see points of water delivery shown for each lot on the final plat. So again, our understanding is, at least on the sketch plan, those potential new ditches, which we don't know if it's going to be flood or sprinkler, are not shown. And I don't believe the irrigation points are shown. So something to consider. We've not received any public comments. Madam Chair. Another issue, entities responsible for maintenance of shared access have not been identified, which is something that we require. We consider subsurface evaluation data that has been completed. So the subsurface evaluations on 2 of the lots showed that perk rates were 10 to 20 minutes per inch, and the 2 cuts, groundwater cuts, one was at 9.5 feet, one was at 10 feet. Again, one on each of the 2 lots. No groundwater was found. So we consider wastewater requirements pertaining to sketch plan review have been met. A water sample analysis was analyzed from a well at 105 County Road 8BC. That is property which is proposed lot 1. Total coliform was present in that water sample. All the other elements that were tested either were not, those elements were not detected, or they're in the satisfactory range. So we consider domestic water requirements pertaining to sketch plan review being met. Agriculture impacts to the subdivision or from the subdivision, those have not been addressed, we believe, Madam Chair Foley. Water right requirements pertaining to sketch plan review have not been met. We put that finding in there again because we don't believe what the state engineer's office would like to see. We don't believe that's been shown, but you may see otherwise. Utility requirements pertaining to sketch plan review have been met because obviously we heard from the electricity provider. Lot standards have been met. An HOA will be required. Again, that's in our regs because it says if there's any common facilities that have to be maintained, our regs say an HOA needs to be established. And Madam Chair, I will say, if I remember correctly, the applicant has stated that he's planning to create protective covenants and an HOA. That maybe has changed, but that's my understanding. And it appears that livestock can legally run at large on lands adjacent to the proposed lot. So this subdivision is subject to the Wyoming statute regarding fencing. And I don't know what the plans are for fencing. I know when you look at the sketch plan, it shows a fence around the entire property. But again, I don't know if that meets the state statutes or not. So we're uncertain what the plans are regarding fencing, just so you know. Our understanding is a subdivision improvements agreement will be required because electricity will have to be extended. Our understanding is there's some additional irrigation pipe that maybe has to be put in place. And so that's, and again, possibly the fence, Madam Chair. So a couple unknowns. This subdivision is not within any overlay district. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the sketch plan on October 15th of this year. They recommended conditions, and you had a chance to see those. Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd like to read the conditions we're recommending. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So should you choose to approve the sketch plan, the conditions we recommending is 1, the applicant shall provide all easements as requested by applicable utility special districts, irrigation districts, or public agencies providing services. The width of any utility easement shall be sufficient to allow adequate maintenance, but in no case shall such utility easement be less than 20 feet in width. Easements must be shown on the final plat. Number 2 is prior to final plat review by the Board of County Commissioners, the applicant shall address shared maintenance of the driveway road and do one of the following. Either state how driveway maintenance responsibility will be shared on the final plat, provide a driveway road maintenance agreement to be recorded with the final plat, or state how driveway maintenance responsibility will be shared by providing an HOA. Number 3, prior to final plat review by the Board of County Commissioners, the applicant shall address how the subdivision will be designed to mitigate adverse impacts on ag operations, including but not limited to control of weeds, pests, and litter, confinement of domestic pets, and protection and maintenance of irrigation facilities by providing draft protective covenants to our department. Number 4, prior to final plat review by the county commissioners, the applicant shall provide a formal response from Park County Public Works. Number 5, prior to final plat review with the board, the applicant shall place the following note on the plat. Water well test analysis revealed the presence of total coliform bacteria. Treatment of water prior to consumption may be necessary. Number 6, prior to final plat review with the board, the applicant shall provide evidence that the concerns of the state engineer's office have been addressed. Number 7, prior to final plat review by the Board of County Commissioners, an approved long-term noxious weed management plan shall be submitted to our department. Number 8, prior to final plat review by the board, the applicant shall provide evidence of either an existing legal perimeter fence, written consent from all adjacent landowners that such fence is not required, or plans to construct a perimeter fence. And that's, of course, consistent with state statute. Number 9, prior to final plat review by the board, the applicant shall submit an appropriate subdivision improvements agreement, if applicable, addressing all applicable required improvements. And we have on here utilities, water, irrigation, fencing, so on. Number 10, prior to final plat review by the board, the applicant shall place the following note on the final plat. Any proposed water wells on the subdivision lot shall be permitted by the Wyoming State Engineer's Office prior to installation. Number 11, prior to final plat review by the board, the applicant shall place a notice of the Wyoming Right to Farm and Ranch Act of 91 on the final plat. And 12, the applicant shall otherwise comply with standards in the Park County Development Regulations and minimum subdivision requirements as set forth in state statute. Thank you, Madam Chair. We're happy to answer questions should you have any.
Any questions from commissioners at this time?
Just a quick question, the wildlife migration area, will that be listed on the final plat as well?
My understanding is the applicant would like, and thank you, Commissioner Mangold, Madam Chair, for bringing it up. Yes, with your permission, I think the applicant would like to have that no build zone. I did mention this earlier, no build zone on the final plat. And yeah, as you can see, he is calling it a wildlife mitigation area.
Okay, mitigation area, okay.
Migration.
Oh, I'm sorry, migration. Yeah,
Migration.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Surrounded by a fence.
Yes,
Okay.
but to answer your question, yeah, my understanding is the applicant would like to have that no build zone as it's listed here on the final plat.
Any other questions from the commissioners at this time?
Madam Chair, real quick, can you, I think I followed it, but can you just explain the concerns of the SEO? Because it got a little muddied for me.
Oh, okay. So the SCO mentioned in that email or letter, whatever it was, that they would like to have the water rights shown on I think they called it the plat. And so that is shown in that water distribution plan, which is in our packet. So we believe that those areas of water are currently shown. But then in addition, and that's, I think it was maybe figure 3 in that packet.
Figure 3, page.
Yeah, so we believe that has been met. Our understanding that water distribution plan shows where the water rights are currently existing on these proposed lots.
Okay.
The other issues, the state engineer's office said that essentially if it's going to be, if the property is to be flood irrigated, they would like to have ditches shown to collect that overflow water. And another request they have, my understanding is these are requests or recommendations. They said they would like to have the point of diversion shown for each lot, shown on, again, on that final plat.
Thank you.
So the existing point of diversion is there, but they want it for each lot.
That's my understanding.
Any other questions from the commissioners at this time? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. So at this time, if the applicant would like to add anything to what's been presented to the board, we will do that, and then we will ask for public comment.
I'm Scott Lewis, with Granite Engineering and Surveying, and representing Ken Montgomery for this subdivision. I guess our only comment.
Scott, if I can ask you to be closer to the mic, because we do have to have the recording. Thank you.
Can you hear that? Our only requirement our only comment is the water rights and the fence. Right now, we are provided water to this side through a pump station, which is off a little rock creek. And the topography is such that we're not going to get water unless we pump water from that location. My client is okay with a sprinkler only restriction. However, there is the opportunity if these landowners wanted to, that they could drain water from the west to the east. And we could put waste ditches on here, but I think that Ken would prefer that we just went with a sprinkler only restriction, which would satisfy the irrigation district, the state engineer's office. the comment that having the water rights on the final plat, I don't know if that should be a requirement because the requirement from the county is when we file associated documents, we are already going to file the C3. And that should take care of, I guess, the notice on the final plat. The comment regarding the perimeter fence, the fence around this subdivision is entirely fenced and it meets the 3-wire requirement that is it probably exceeds the 3-wire requirement. So we plan to just do the affidavit that the perimeter fence is present. If there's any other questions, we would entertain those.
I think as long as it meets the statutory requirements on the fence, that's the biggest thing. So if that's verified with planning and zoning before the final plat comes in, I think that's acceptable. Okay. Okay, anything else at this time,
You got anything you want to say?
Commissioner?
Madam Chair, while we have him here. Madam Chair, thank you for the applicant question on the plan. I know this is preliminary and everything, but should the access 60-foot easement, should it not extend north to the back of the second lot 3 for access?
I'll tell you why we did that. Because north of this property, north of lot 3, there's a 35-acre parcel that Ken sold to an individual. That individual had an agreement that they would maintain that road to access his property. So we are only providing a 60-foot easement with the approval of Public Works to go from lots 2 and 3, and then the owner of the property north of lot 3 would maintain that 20-foot easement across lot 3 to get to his property. And that's why we did that.
Okay, I understand that. If I were wanting to purchase lot 3 and I look at this, you're not showing an easement through that property.
Correct. But we do provide him legal access because we have an easement going up to the edge of his property, and beyond that, we wouldn't build a road to his house anyway.
So you're saying that 20-foot that is indicated between lot 2 and lot 3, the 20-foot on the eastern edge is that road right of way?
There is an existing easement that provides access to the property owner to the north.
Okay, and that is that 20-foot that's indicated?
Yes.
Okay,
Is it only 20-foot or is it 60-foot?
20.
It's to be south or on the bottom side of lot 3. It's a 60-foot. Everything north of lot 3 is only a 20-foot.
North of lot 2.
Excuse me. Yes. Okay. North of lot 2.
But my point is, if you look at this property as lot 3, you would
Yeah.
not know that there is a 60-foot easement or 20-foot. I guess you see there's a 20-foot, but it's listed as a utility easement. It's not listed as a egress regress, even though the 35-acre property owner to the north may have that in his, but the person owning lot 3 is not going to know that. Am I wrong?
Well,
I'm not seeing where it says utility.
Yeah,
It's not utility.
it doesn't say utility on the plat.
It does in.
It does on
the
sheet
conditions.
P2. It calls out item number 3 is 20-foot ingress, egress, and utility easement.
Oh,
Ingress, egress.
yeah.
So. but-
And it specifically calls out as being in favor of the owner to the north, which is in the center at the bottom of sheet C2. If you see that.
Oh, I see it.
Oh, I see it.
Okay.
And it's represented on sheet C1 as the little square with the 3 on it near the upper right-hand corner of the drawing.
Any other questions right now?
We can address this on the final. I mean, Public
Absolutely.
Works is gonna look at this as well. We've never allowed a narrow 20-foot access easement.
Pretty narrow.
That's my point.
Okay.
Well, if I comment on that, once we provide access to lot 3, which we terminate the 60-foot right of way at the south side of lot 3. Once we provided them legal access, I think we've met our obligation to provide them legal access.
I guess Public Works will take a look at that as they review this,
Okay.
because this is preliminary.
Okay.
So they'll review it. Okay, this is a public hearing, so I would ask if there is any public that would like to speak to this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, is there any public comments regarding this preliminary plat? And for the third time, is there any public comment? Hearing none? Pleasure of the board.
Madam Chair, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Public hearing is closed. Pleasure of the board.
Madam Chair, move to approve the Starry Nights Mountain Estate Minor Subdivision 94 sketch plan with staff recommendations.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the Starry Nights Mountain Estates Minor Subdivision 94 sketch plan with recommendations. Any further
Madam-
discussion on the motion?
Madam Chair, just for discussion, I mean, I'm not opposed to approving this, but at some point, we're gonna have to get the state to really refine that fencing rule.
Mhm.
Um,
That'd be nice.
for one, it does not address, are you gonna have gates, cattle guards, accesses?
Right.
There's no requirement right now, but I mean, it's really silly to fence something and then not have a gate or a cattle guard.
Well, they didn't address places where there can't be with an existing 30-foot drain or
Exactly.
whatever either.
I
We
know, I
we
know.
don't have the ability to deal with that.
But how are we supposed to regulate this when you have it requiring him to put a legal fence in, but except everywhere except the road?
Understood.
Madam Chair, I'm looking right now and I apologize if I missed this, but this morning, the planning director indicated that the no build zone, the way it was shaded, did that get fixed on this?
Yes, it's the larger area now. She said originally it was this that they shaded to leave it as build zone, but now my understanding is the hatching is done to indicate the wildlife mitigation
No build
area.
zone.
Okay,
Okay.
migration area. Why are we stuck on that word?
I apologize
Yeah.
for starting that.
You set that up.
Yeah, my apologies.
Understood. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to approve with condition? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? Motion passes. Okay, so we'll expect to see this one in a while.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, 2025-81.
Thank you, Colin.
And just so you know, this is not on the property. This thing, this existing point of diversion,
Oh, it's not. Oh, so they'd have to indicate how they're gonna get it to the property.
Yeah, he said there's not, you have to have a
Okay.
pump.
Right, but they're gonna have to indicate how that gets to the property.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna have to be an easement for that use. Okay, this one's one.
so that might be fun for them, yeah,
Okay,
because I can tell you right now.
Because it's way over here.
That bridge that I had to build,
oh, it's on those people. Not our problem.
nope,
Okay. So with that, the next thing on our agenda, Dr. Aaron Billen, our County Public Health Officer. I think he's here. He's here. Good morning.
I have some handouts.
Absolutely. Good to see you. Mosquito surveillance program discussion.
I'd like to note that we have in the room a couple subject matter experts, Josh Short from Park County Wheaton Pass and Alan Griffin, the sanitation supervisor from the city of Powell. Should we have any questions that fall within their expertise?
Okay.
The handout I've given you, the first picture is a picture of the Culex mosquito. It is the mosquito that carries the West Nile virus. There's more than 1,000 species of Culex mosquito. On the next page, you'll see that of the 3 main species that carry the West Nile virus in the United States, 2 of them, their habitat overlaps with Wyoming. And on the third sheet, you'll see a diagram outlining what happens with West Nile virus. Bacterial illnesses do respond, for the most part, to antibiotics. Viruses do not respond to antibiotics. We do have a few diseases for which we have antiviral medications. But of the people who become infected with West Nile virus, and it is through a mosquito bite, 80% of them will have no symptoms, although they are viremic, have the virus in their bloodstream. Of the 20% that are sick enough, 10%, a percentage of those will develop, 1% will develop neuroinvasive West Nile virus disease. That's where the West Nile virus penetrates their nervous system. And of these, 10% will experience a fatality. As you can see on the next page, West Nile virus was first described in the West Nile province of Uganda in 1937. But in 1999, it came to the United States predominantly along the East Coast. And you can see in this map here, over the next 3 years, it marched across the United States from east to west to now be found in all 48 contiguous continental states. And the area of predominance of West Nile virus is in the Intermountain West at this time. And on the next page, you can see that this year alone, in 2025, we have had 14 reported cases of West Nile virus in the state of Wyoming. And on the next page, you see that when we average this out we calculate this out per 100,000 population, Wyoming ranks number 6 in all the United States for the incidence of West Nile virus disease. On to the next page. This year in 2025, we have had 1 case of West Nile neuroinvasive disease in Park County, and that happened here in Cody. The patient was treated in the Cody Regional Hospital. And the next page shows the incidence from 1999, the year West Nile came to the United States, to 2024 of West Nile virus in Park County is 1.12 cases per 100,000 people. But if you turn to the next page, you'll see that currently Park County is number 5 of all 23 Wyoming counties, experiencing about 3.2 cases of West Nile virus invasive disease, not just West Nile virus fever, but invasive disease, of which 10% will die in per 100,000 people. On the next page is the dashboard that the Wyoming Department of Health has for the West Nile virus, and that's maintained by one of their epidemiologists who does an excellent job. You'll see that in Wyoming, we've had, once again, 14 cases, 9 cases of neuroinvasive disease, but 2 deaths. I do not believe there has ever been a year in Wyoming where 2 people have died of West Nile virus. And I think this represents a significant escalation in the cases of West Nile virus. If you look at the chart on the right, that is on the webpage, that is scrollable. You can scroll through all the counties, but I've frozen it there with Park County at the bottom. You can see that Park County is the capital of Wyoming for equine West Nile virus. Although the natural host for the virus is corvids, that is crows, ravens, magpies, and jays, it's also a coincidental host are horses. And there are lately many more cases of equine West Nile virus, the veterinarians will tell you, in Park County, particularly in Clark, than any place else in Wyoming. So you can see by the graph at the bottom, the symptoms of West Nile virus predominantly make themselves manifest in the summer months. We see human cases, and in fact, these 2 human cases, one in Fremont County and one in Casper County, who died this year. And I've had conversations with the infectious disease specialists who take care of them. Their symptoms presented the last week of August, the first week of September, which is when the mosquito season is starting to wane. But it takes about 4 to 6 days after a bite with an infected mosquito that these people on average become symptomatic. It can last up to 2 weeks. Now, on the next page, obviously, you're aware we're proposing some type of a mosquito surveillance program because we believe that this increase in West Nile virus, not only the incident cases per 100,000, but 2 deaths in Wyoming when there's never been 2 deaths in any year to date. We think there needs to be some kind of a mosquito surveillance program. I've mentioned the presence of Alan Griffin here today. The city of Powell does administer a mosquito surveillance program at this time, but that is limited to the boundaries of the city of Powell. But this is an example of what's called a light trap. That is a trap developed and and offered by the CDC on the bottom that catches mosquitoes. Is particularly good at catching Culex mosquitoes. On the top is a thermos, an insulator that contains some dry ice, because carbon dioxide, as the dry ice sublimates, is what attracts mosquitoes during their biting time. And the Culex mosquito is particularly a nighttime biter from dusk until dawn. And the next page or so, these mosquitoes are dumped out, and they are looked at under a type of microscope called a macroscope, and they can then, if you look at your first page again, they can identify by visual characteristics the Culex mosquito, which has no markings on its thorax, a striped abdomen, and a lack of markings on its legs. And then if we, of all the Culex mosquitoes, they are then stacked in a package with dry ice and sent to the Wyoming Health Department laboratory, the Public Health Department laboratory in Cheyenne, where they are then ground up into an emulsion, and then that entire pool of Culex mosquitoes can be tested for West Nile virus. So we already know that we've got the Culex mosquito in Park County, and we've had 1 case of neuroinvasive disease. We've had a death before several years ago in Park County from West Nile virus, but this case this summer, we don't know if it was contracted in another state, in another county. We'd like to know if there's West Nile virus in the county. There probably is because of all the equine cases that we've had. But the public health laboratory in Cheyenne provides its services in doing the polymerase chain reaction or PCR test for West Nile virus free of charge at this time. And currently, through conversations with Alan Griffin and Josh Shorb, and we presented last week to the Board of Directors of Park County Weed and Pest, we believe that we've got enough things in place that we can get a surveillance program off the ground, as I volunteered to manage the traps for next summer during the mosquito season. But we are going to need more support to keep a program like this going. We believe it is a walk before you run type issue. And the data that we get can be used in several ways. And you'll see on this tech sheet right here, once we've identified the West Nile virus in Park County, our first order of business is going to be alert the public and educate them about how they can avoid mosquitoes with insect repellents, their clothing, the times they're outside, using their air conditioning rather than leaving their windows open, things like this. But also, you can take a step beyond that, and you can use this data to help direct mosquito abatement programs. Currently, there is some mosquito abatement going on in the city of Powell. Park County Weed and Pest does do some larvicide spraying or larvicide treatment for mosquitoes under the direction of the city of Cody. But this is certainly a walk before you run, and it's a scalable program. On the last page, you'll see that one of the issues we've come up against is that in Wyoming, every county has a declared list of pests. And this is the 2019 list. That's the only one I had access to, but this is updated every year. But currently, of 23 counties in Wyoming, there are 5 counties that do not declare mosquitoes as a declared pest and do not have mosquito surveillance programs. And Park County is one of them. And if you'll flip back quickly to the Department of Health dashboard that I included, you'll see on the far right that since 2016, some counties have submitted hundreds and even thousands of pools of mosquitoes. These are cotton traps. And in Park County, there have been only 8 pools, I believe, if Alan, that was correct, 4 pools last year and 4 pools this year. And so we are far behind the rest of the Wyoming counties when it comes to surveilling for West Nile virus. So that is my presentation. We have 2 subject experts here. I'd be happy to respond to any questions, but what we're looking for is we're trying to look years down the road. We're going to need some more support to keep a program like this off the ground and going.
I guess I would ask about the level of support or what you would be asking for right now.
I'm asking for support in general.
Okay.
Okay. Next year, Josh Shorb has told me that we already possess the microscopes to identify the Culex mosquitoes. Alan Griffin tells me you already have the expertise to identify the Culex mosquitoes, and the Department of Health Laboratory does the identification, the PCR test for free. And I volunteered my time for next summer to manage the traps. But if this is a successful program, and if it falls under the purview of Park County Weed and Pest, it's going to require money and it's going to require man hours. And I believe that in terms of the process of how to do that, Alan Griffin is an expert. In terms of the finances and how to make this work, Josh is a great resource for us. So I can't give you details, Madam Chair, but I'm trying to look a couple years down the road.
I guess I'd ask Josh just for a ballpark thing. And I know, budgets are kind of in a little bit of a interesting position at this point from what we know. But can you give us a ballpark of, they say they're spraying in Powell, in the city of Powell. Do we know what kind of cost the city of Powell has by just spraying in the city of Powell?
Better take that out. Sorry.
Okay.
It varies year to year. Some years we will adulticide, which is the fogging or the spraying, and we've done that up to 8 or 9 times in a year. The last couple of years, it's been 4 years or 4 times, and it goes off of trap numbers and complaints.
Okay.
Our program in the last 15 years has ran up to $35,000 put into a total, down to around 20. And it depends on, a lot of that is pesticide, both the larvicide and the adulticide is pretty expensive. We do get a grant from the Department of Ag to help with that. It's an emergency insect management grant that helps, and that fluctuates greatly every year as the pool gets smaller and smaller.
Thank you. Okay, just to give us some kind of ballpark of what it takes for a particular area.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Billen, you mentioned the equipment, the container and the dry ice and the traps and that you volunteered for the traps, but the testing would be done, the macroscope is in Powell, it sounds like. And right.
And Weed and Pest. Josh has told me they already have the equipment for that.
So if most of the Culex mosquito's presence we've seen so far is in Clark, I guess I would want to see a plan, like how many traps do we have? Where are they located? Right. And then do we have the equipment already for the traps?
No, I don't believe we have the equipment, but
or does the state?
Josh, no, the state does not provide them, but Josh feels that he could provide a rudimentary number of traps initially within his current budget.
Okay. And then I guess my second question, and I'll let Josh respond, but it sounds like the first step to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Park County doesn't have the Culex mosquito designated as a pest. So is that Weed and Pest that needs to designate that? That's my first part of my question. Is that the Board of County Commissioners? And if the county does identify the Culex mosquito as a pest, does that then obligate the county to monitor the pest?
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow commissioners. We don't have it declared in Park County. So to spend significant amount of monies on any species, whether it's a weed or a pest, we'd have to declare it. That's a joint resolution between our board and the Department of Ag, or the Wyoming Weed and Pest Council, and that and ultimately goes up to the Board of Agriculture Commissioners. Right now, I mean, we don't have much money, you know, everything is, we're going broke, you know, we've cut down. We had 10 cost share programs. We eliminated 7 of them, reduced 2 of the other ones. We're planning on not replacing a full-time staff person in the coming fiscal year. A variety of other things. You guys know that. You guys are kind of in the same boat. To do this program, I don't know if we'd have to declare the mosquitoes for this upcoming season. We would have a grant like Alan talked about. We could buy those traps. They're not that expensive. We can get into the traps for under $1,000, buy some dry ice. You know, every time Dr. Billen is volunteering his time, we would volunteer a truck and some fuel. And what we talked about is monitoring in 5 locations of the county. Alan already kind of has PAL covered. We would put one within the city of Cody, out in Clark, another population center west of Cody. We talked about the South Fork, and then we'd have to do one down in Matiti somewhere. So to do this, it would be and there's no really set time period that you should space your monitoring of your traps, but the more the better. I would like to see it every week or 2. That's going to depend a lot on our volunteer labor force that we have at this point. But it's a 2-day thing. You would set up, you'd have to go put them all out, and we would determine those locations later on. Somewhere that's kind of away from the public, because they do have a light on them. You know, we don't want to attract a bunch of attention and stuff like that. So you have to go around the county, set those out, and then the next day you'd have to go collect them, or within 2 days, and then take the microscope. We have one in Powell. We may be able to get another one purchased with grant money, and then those have to be separated out, the QLEX from the other different species out there, packaged into whatever vessel that they provide to us, and then send those out. So it's 2 days by the time you go run around, set them out, go collect them, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that's what I don't have manpower. And we reduced our seasonal crews from 12 people to 8 next year. So I do not have manpower to do this. So thankfully we have a volunteer to do this. Commissioner Simone, I don't know if I answered your question or if I just spoke a bunch.
So from what I understood is you don't have to designate it as a pest first to start this stuff, to start the surveillance, right?
I think at this level where we're just monitoring and we're going to be provided grant funds from the Department of Ag to help pay for these. No. I think the ultimate goal is what they want to do is establish a monitoring program to determine the level of disease in the county. And I know there was another death in Carbon County, just to the north of us this year. I know him personally. But then they're going to want to add or have some type of control program in place eventually. They're not just going to provide money for monitoring and say, away you go. That would lead to a need for more revenue. On the weed and pest statutes right now, weed and pest districts are allowed up to 2 mills property tax to fund their operations. Right now, Park County Weed and Pest draws 1 mill. So there is that would be, you know, some type of resolution and a request from our board, which would be, you know, they're going to have to consider that. And then that would go to the county commissioners to approve that. But that's a discussion that would have to happen a couple of years down the road. But those options are available to the weed and pest district as well as the commissioners.
So if I understood you correctly, even though we don't have it declared in Park County, we can still go through all the processes for monitoring, and the state will still look at things and test them for us until we can make that determination.
Yes, but I believe state statute is written such that once it is declared, we must surveil for that
Oh, okay.
particular pest, once it is declared.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the second part of my question. Once you declare it, then are you obligated? Is the county obligated to?
By state statute, I believe so. Is that how you interpret that?
Yeah, so I would not want to start spending any tax dollars on actual treatment programs before it's declared.
Test it.
But for the level of money that would be put up by the weed and pest, since we already have the vehicles, we would have to supply a little bit of fuel. We got volunteer time. We'd have grant monies to purchase traps, supplies, and depending on the logistics, another microscope. These are trivial costs, you know, but if we're going to start treating stuff, we would have to do it right, declare it, you know, and have a funding source.
Okay. Commissioner?
My question is, if we did this, if we got the grant, are you required to continue a surveillance program for a specific amount of time?
Madam Chair, I don't think there'd be anything, there's nothing defined in that grant application. I have it right here. We have, Park County Weed and Pest has applied for a similar type of grant from this same, a similar pot of money. So we are well versed in doing these, but I would say probably a 3-year time period is what they would be interested. It's chaired by the Game and Fish, and the Department of Agriculture is who decides these monies. I think you would be able to get money for a 3-year period, and they're gonna say, okay, you guys have it. We're gonna find it. We have West Nile virus here. What is your plan? I think that's what they're gonna say. If after a 3-year period, this is just my projections, they're gonna say, if you don't have any type of plan, we're gonna decline your grant request.
So along that line, with the grant though, wouldn't fully fund this for 3 years.
Madam Chair,
Could it?
right now, from what I heard, we did have a Zoom call with the Department of Health and Department of Ag a couple weeks ago to talk about funding sources and all that. These grants are being funded about 60% right now. I think when we're trying to get a surveillance program lifted off the ground, I think they may look on that a little bit more favorably this first time to purchase some equipment and some stuff.
If I may, Madam Chair, the grant, they look at them every year. Nothing's guaranteed when you go into it. They look at what past performance after the first year, they look at the past performance. They have a whole rubric to go by, and the next year's funding goes by how you score on that rubric, on how your integrated pest management program is set up and what results you had, and also what disease you had in your area. Plays into a factor of that.
So I think the point is, if we're going to do it, we need to do it right.
Correct.
I'm not sure whether I heard this part or not, but Dr. Billin, thank you for volunteering to chase this. How often would you say you would be visiting each of those 5 trap areas?
Well,
That's
Josh and I
determined.
talked about it in our conference call. We thought initially every couple of weeks. And it depends on what you want to do with the data. If you just want to know that West Nile virus is in the county and we haven't gotten to the point of abatement, then once you know it's in the county, you don't have to prove it again that it's in the county once you've proved that it is. So it depends on what we want to do with the information and how quickly we want this program to grow.
Question on the West Nile. A few years ago, there was, I don't know if proper surge, if you will, outbreak of West Nile. I had a horse that contacted it, and there were several around that did. To me, that was concerning. Does it go like we don't know, or where is the science going with this? I know the surveillance would help possibly, but my point is, what sparred this interest right now? Because I'm not hearing of an outbreak, if you will, or a surge in West Nile and Park County. I had our vet that just preg tested last week, and this was on the agenda. So I asked him, are we seeing, and he said that they haven't seen one horse yet this year in 25. So I'm just asking, where does this?
I'm aware of probably up to a dozen horses in Clark that have tested positive this year for West Nile. And on the Department of Health's website, I think or their dashboard, I think you're referring to the spike, the graph on the lower right. The brown line is Wyoming. The blue line is the rest of the United States. And that is probably the year you're referring to. But it is my belief that 2 deaths this year, when we have never had 2 deaths in a year, represents a significant escalation of West Nile virus and and can be a threat to human life. I don't think we want to be ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, rather than behind it, because it'd be very easy to be chasing this from behind.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
This is a dumb question because I think I know the answer, but so if we put out 5 traps, one in Clark and you name it, place, those samples are obviously gonna be set separately, right?
I'm
They
sorry,
would be
repeat that,
sent
please.
in separately? So we
Yes.
would know if it's Clark or,
All the mosquitoes in one trap are considered a pool.
okay,
And that you look at one pool at a time.
Okay.
So that way you're testing the Matizzi pool and the Powell pool and the Cody pool. Because we don't want to have just a Park County pool.
Yeah.
Because then we don't know where in Park County the West Nile virus is located if that pool tests positive.
right, correct, okay, thank you.
Well, and I think the movement of, definitely a horse person, but the movement of horses in and out of the county doesn't help matters either.
No, it
There's areas of the
doesn't.
county that they move in and out of more than others, so they can bring it with them.
Horses are a coincidental host to the West Nile virus. They don't contribute to the West Nile problem in a big way like birds do, wild birds, corvids, but they are a marker. When we see it increase in horses, we think it's increasing, and Game and Fish is involved in this, and they do test along with avian influenza. They do test dead birds found on property for these two diseases.
Good to know.
Madam Chair, and just a follow up to Commissioner Teal, I think from a medical standpoint, I think if you know what's in your county, we see patients all the time that come in with viral type presentations. And maybe you don't think, oh, I need to test this patient for West Nile virus because it's not reported in your county. You might get something that is reported in the state. But I think it might help guide too, because I think the one case that I'm aware of, it took a long time to get to the diagnosis of West Nile virus that was in our county.
Because no one was suspecting it.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a saying in medicine, common things occur commonly and rare things occur rarely. If we think it's rare, it may not be on the first round of tests that we do. To use an example, we know we had at least 3 cases of pertussis this summer in the county. Pediatricians and family physicians have been telling people and families for decades, their kids should be vaccinated and you need to be aware of this. But there is an added weight to recommendations when you can say to the public, we know it's here. We've had 3 cases this summer, and experience has shown that people then start to pay attention to your recommendations.
But my one follow-up question was, in Powell, it sounds like are we already we're already testing, surveilling, and then already gathering the pool and looking under the microscope? Is that correct? Because you said he was an expert in identifying the Culex.
Yes, Alan has been trained in identification.
We do trap. We separate our Culex out of the trap. For the last 2 years, we have sent 4 different pools to the state to be tested. We mainly started trapping because of the grant as a requirement to get the grant money, in all honesty. The Culex is pretty easy to separate. It has great markers, so it's not that difficult to separate. It's time consuming. It's really time consuming if you don't keep up during the year. That's what October's meant for.
Have you found
We,
Culex in Powell?
oh, we definitely have Culex in Powell. It's slow. It starts off slow. The Culex mosquito starts off. You'll start seeing them, can't see them in May, but more towards the end of July, August is when they really take off. And part of that's, I don't know how much information you want. The Culex lays its eggs in rafts of up to 200 at a time. And that's why the larvicide programs, like what Cody's doing for larvicide and what we're doing for larvicide, when we started larvicide, it really helped. But whereas the floodwater mosquitoes, the 80s, which are more aggressive almost in this area, are single eggs on dry soil at a time. So that's why the Culex multiplies so much towards the end of the mosquito season.
Jared, do you put the traps next to the baseball field? Because that seems to be where.
No, we tell them to go after the announcer.
Do you have, is there any kind of training or anything that you have for people collecting all this?
We train, we go to classes through the Wyoming Mosquito Management Association, which they meet every winter, and we do some online training with it, and we train in-house. But as far as identifying mosquitoes, I was the first one in Powell to do that, and I did it for multiple years, and now the foreman of our department does it.
Madam Chair, so I guess just in follow-up, Dr. Billen, I mean, I think I really appreciate the data that you presented. I think is very helpful. But I guess my follow-up question then is kind of back to what the chair's question was, which is what do we need to do now, right now? I guess, what are we looking for? Do we need an action right now? Or is it just kind of informational and then Weed and Pest applies for the grant? That's where I'm still a little bit muddied.
I think we need support in general. As I mentioned, this is going to be a walk before we run. We think we have enough currently to get the program off the ground. But if it's going to be viable, we will need man hours and we will need dollars to make this work. I don't perceive that there's any action that is required at this current time on the part of the commission.
Appreciate the knowledge.
Madam Chair, Weed and Pest would apply for that grant and we'd administer and do all the final reports and we would handle all that.
And I think, Josh, you guys have been pretty good about it, but keeping us updated on how things move forward and where it might be. And if in fact it gets to the point of that second mill, depending on what happens with the property taxes. I mean, there's a whole lot of future questions out here that we can't answer today, but knowing that we may have to move forward with a little bit of assistance one way or another. If it proves to be viable, through the testing.
And Madam Chair, I think we can put ourselves on the agenda or request a spot on the agenda for next fall, this time frame next year once we get a more complete picture and
Be great.
of what we found.
And
what we
report on
didn't
how
find.
it went and where we
Right,
see
yeah.
it going.
Right. Yeah. What kind of results we have. Okay. No, that sounds great. Does anybody have any additional? Is everybody basically supportive of moving forward?
Mhm.
Okay.
Just one question, how much larvicide does it take to take care of a big mosquito?
Yeah, Clark comes up all the time.
We can talk about that.
No comments, Commissioner.
I do want to follow up though on your graph thing here. It only goes back 10 years and the surge that I'm referencing was closer to 20 years ago.
And that would have been shortly after West Nile virus came to the United
it
States.
must have been based
came
on
in
how it
1999,
came into
yeah.
the US. I understand that. But I do know my memory serves a fairly large surge at that. Do you have data that goes back 20 years?
Not at my fingertips.
I don't.
I can get it for you.
I would like you to consider that. Yeah, because I know you remember that.
I do.
I mean, there was horses all over the county and humans too. I don't know if there was any deaths, but it was very
Prevalent.
yes, at that time.
Now, you raise an interesting issue. We may have seen a larger surge 20 years ago because there is some immunity that is conferred from having an asymptomatic case of West Nile virus fever, and that's believed to be lifelong. So we would think that the disease, like the COVID-19 virus did, becomes weakened and is less virulent over time. One thing I don't totally understand is why we've had two deaths this summer, and we've never had 2 deaths in Wyoming in any summer. So all the questions aren't answered, but both horses and humans do acquire immunity by having the West Nile fever viremia, and that is presumed to be lifelong.
Is there a way to test that?
You would have to test for, I don't know off the top of my head. The test for West Nile virus is for the genetic material of the virus itself. That's the polymerase chain reaction test. If you test for someone, an animal or a person's immunity, you'd have to test that they're making antibodies. And I don't know off the top of my head if such a test exists.
So if we're going to talk about this next fall, I guess thinking about the people of Park County and as we start to run this next summer, are there things in particular that the public should be looking at? I mean, I'm talking symptoms here that might help them determine whether they wait 4 or 5 days to go to a doctor or whether they get in there when they start seeing the symptoms.
Unfortunately, the early symptoms of West Nile virus before the neuroinvasive disease is very similar to almost every other viral condition, including the flu. Fever, chills, nausea, vomiting, rash. It is very hard to distinguish it. And as Commissioner Simone said, unless we're looking for it, we don't find it. And that's why I think it's important that we know if it's in the county.
Appreciate that.
20 years of working in the emergency room. There's many times when I see people with viral illnesses, and West Nile virus was not at the top of my differential diagnosis because it wasn't known to be in the county. That wasn't the first test I did looking for people with viral illness symptoms.
Okay. Anything else come to mind?
No, I just appreciate you coming forward.
Yeah, looking forward to find out what we can.
We appreciate your time.
So,
And we appreciate Josh and Alan being here.
Yes,
absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for working on the grants to,
Yeah.
because I know that takes some time.
Keep us
We
updated.
wanted to come not just with a complaint, with a proposed solution.
I like.
That's helpful. That's
Wow, that's a first.
well, and if you need, letter of support or something as far as the grant stuff goes, let us know.
Might take you
Yeah.
on that.
Okay.
That would be-
Yep, not a problem.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, you bet.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Commissioners, is there anything else to come before us today?
Oh,
Move to adjourn.
fill it out for me.
Scott, man.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Kelly, all those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed?
Scott already left the meeting.
Yes, Scott already left. We're adjourned.